Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, indeed.
Dr. Claud Anderson. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you all for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. Looks like I'm in good company.
Yes,
yeah,
you are.
good morning. You know, you've been a very requested guest.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. People are always like, you got to have Dr. Claud Anderson on. You got to have Dr. Claud Anderson on for years.
Yes.
People been saying that.
Well, you know why? I've been paying them well to ask you that.
Is that what Powernomics is?
No, Powernomics is specifically dedicated to trying to inform black folk and trying to elevate them to a higher level of competitiveness in the society and overcome the primary legacies of slavery and centuries of Jim Crow semi-slavery in the South. We're in a very dangerous situation in this country as black folk, and this next year going to be our last chance to get out of it.
I thought you about to say it's going to be our last year period. I wouldn't doubt that either.
That's pretty close. You're in a very dangerous situation. After all my years in politics and national politics and international politics, that's why I left government, saying that somebody got to get out here and start raising cane on behalf of black folk.
What did you do in government? What did you do in government?
Oh, I was Assistant Secretary of the United States Department of Commerce, the first black. I was also a chairman for economic development for governors. Also, I was only black to be appointed to be over the government's property disposal program, which means my signature alone, I can give away all kind of federal property to anybody. And also I was educator for over the entire state of Florida education system for about 8 years. And so I've been around the bond for a long time, but I finally dawned on me that somebody got to get out here and start raising cane on behalf of black folk.
Now, how do we catch up? You know, we're so far behind. How do we catch up to make sure that we can play in the same game or even on the same field?
Well, the first thing I had to do is go back and correct what we've never done. In all my years in national politics and international politics, for most of the people you all are very, very familiar with in name, they never addressed the primary problems of black folk. Our primary problem was not social integration or civil rights. The primary problem is you never corrected the legacies and burdens of slavery. See, the whole point of slavery was to do what? They never asked that. It was to socially engineer black folk into the lowest level of a real-life monopoly game. And what means that they maldistributed almost 100% of all this nation's land, resources, rights, privileges, business, and controls of all levels of government into the hands of the dominant white society. Black folk haven't got a snowball's chance of ever being a competitive people. You might struggle if it lasts another 2 or 3 years, but it's going to wipe you out pretty soon. You came out of slavery in 1860 having 1/2 of 1% of this nation's wealth. Here you are 150 years later, guess what? You still own 1/2 of 1% of the wealth. And in a nation, in a race-based society, it is what you own and control that determines your equal opportunities and your rights and privileges. It's had nothing darn thing to do with civil rights. That's a waste of time. It doesn't have anything to do with the voting, but that's an intellectual masturbation process. Ain't gonna do any good. What you need is own and control wealth and power.
They said intellectual masturbation. I heard you say that earlier on something I was watching. You said they get off, but it does nothing for them.
You got it down pat, bro. That's like you starving to death. Somebody give you a steak, you rub it outside your stomach. They ain't gonna do you any good. They doing the damn thing for you. You know, I said, no, quit playing with black folk. So when I left the president, I ran a campaign, I guess. Well, let me go back. I guess I've been very privileged in all my years. Now I'm 85 now, so I reached the peak. I don't have to get along with anybody anymore.
Man, that's a beautiful feeling.
You know,
yes, sir.
That's one of the enrichments of age. But I decided after all the years of playing politics, I guess I was privileged in the sense of being the only black in the nation that ever was a campaign manager, not in a campaign manager, but a campaign manager for governors, for presidents, for attorney generals, for state legislators, and congressmen. No other blacks had that. I felt for that reason I had an obligation to get out here and do something for black folk. And so I don't play any games with black folk. Most of the friends I know that you all probably have on your shows, they're just trying to get some self-indictment elevation. I don't need it.
Now, what did you think about Kamala Harris and Cory Booker? I know you said voting is an illusion.
They're probably nice people. They ain't gonna do anything for black folk. You say I have yet to this day ever heard or seen not one president, not one candidate for public office ever get up and say, here's what I'm gonna do for black folk. That violates the entire premise of politics. Politics is a process that decides who's gonna get what benefits out of life. It's based on a very simple premise of quid pro quo. Politics, as you know it now, never existed until about the 1500s. And it says we will determine who gets what blessings and who suffers. And so consequently, nobody's ever stood up and say, here's what black folk are gonna get. You're talking about the candidates. The first thing these black folks should be asking is not what candidate you're going to represent or going to vote for. Who cares? What you should be asking is, what are you going to get? What are you voting for?
That's right. What are you going to get in exchange for your vote?
That's right. What do you get? What are you voting for? What are you going to get?
Mm-hmm.
If you ain't getting a damn thing, why are you voting? And see, and not one candidate in all the years I ran campaigns, not one candidate or one president or one party, political party, neither the Republican or the Democratic Party, Libertarian Party, the Green Party, not one has ever promised that if I get the black vote, here's what I'm going to do for black folk.
It's the first year it's ever happened, and I think the only reason it's happened is because of all the hell that's being raised on social media. And, like a lot of times when these presidential candidates come up here, we ask them specifically, what is your black agenda?
See, you're right. And what did she say to you?
Well, I mean, they all have little things here and there. The only person I've seen have a real live black agenda is Mayor Pete. He has the Douglas plan, which is based off Frederick Douglass.
Okay, right. And see, but most of them, what they're going to do is give you that old game that they used during during the formation of this country in 1789. Mm-hmm. And they met up in Philadelphia and says, we're gonna build this nation, and we're gonna create a document that make us the cradle of democracy. It's gonna be the Constitution. And they said, and we're gonna make this a plant land of opportunity and freedom for everybody.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So they met in Philadelphia for a whole week. You know what they did for a whole week? They closed the doors and put the guards on the windows in Philadelphia, and said, "Now we got to write this Constitution, but we got a problem now. If we're going to offer this as a land of opportunity for everybody, isn't it inconsistent and hypocritical for us to be getting ready to enslave all these damn black folk we're bringing into the country?" They said, "How are we going to get past that?" They said, "Well, what we'll do, we'll run a game on them." They've been running that same game ever since. What we'll do in the Constitution, we use very broad and ambiguous terms. And certain terms, certain of those broad, ambiguous terms would apply to whites, and certain apply to black folk. So in the United States Constitution says, "We the people, all the people, all God got a God-given right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness." Initially, it wasn't even happiness; it was really a property, because black folk are going to be property. And so that's what it was structured on. And they said, "Well, what about black folk?" When they read the Constitution, they said, "What we'll do, let's use other words. Let's use code words like those who are indebted, those who are in bondage, those who are property, those are 3/5 of a human being, mm-hmm. those who are equal to a field animal." And our people never figured that out. Mm. So you got all our civil rights leaders running around for years and running for public office like you're talking about we got rights. You don't have any rights in the Constitution. There's no rights for blacks in the Constitution. The United States Constitution in 1789 was strictly the first affirmative action plan in the country, strictly and solely for whites. Mm. And those who later on could pass for whites. That's what it's about. Mm-hmm. And black folk are the only people in this country that can't pass for white. And when I left the White House with President Carter in 1970, the Office of Management and Budget says, we're now going to make everybody in here that comes into the country, we're going to start qualifying them as being white. See, up to 1970, as an example, Hispanics were always white. They were always whites. Mm-hmm. But what happened in 1970, I was over education for the state of Florida at that time, and I have the dubious honor of writing the second affirmative action plan in the United States, but the first one for black folk. When I wrote the affirmative action plan, it was approved by the governor and the state cabinets, the systems, but I didn't write it for minorities and poor folk, those broad terms, when people of color, and for diversity, and for gays and lesbians and midgets and humpbacks and one-eyed people. I wrote it strictly for black folk.
So listen, is there any way that blacks can correct the resource imbalance?
Yeah, you can. See, and you start playing the game. That's why my second book, I wrote the first book called Black Labor, White Wealth, and which Ebony Jet calls the second Bible for black folk around the world. It sells all over Europe and into Africa. That was to show you every technique, every trick, every custom, every policy that the major white society used to lock black folk into a lowest level of a real life monopoly game. And they maldistribute all the resources, period. It showed us that in very graphic terms. I think you got to have a copy of that bottom book over there.
Yes, sir. Black Labor, White Wealth.
That's what that was for.
We got Dirty Little Secrets. We got more Dirty Little Secrets.
Right. Okay, thank you. Now, and this is what they call it around the world. They call this the second Bible for black folk. Mm-hmm. It shows you exactly what happened to you and that you have no rights. And power. I follow that with Powernomics.
I did. Oh, it's behind you.
Yeah.
There you go. Boom.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And this is a national plan. What was the question you just asked me? I ran past it. You asked me.
How do we catch up as black folk?
How you catch up? This is a national plan for black folk. It says a national plan to empower black Americans, period. And what you first thing you got to do, and to make it long story short, You gotta have what you never had in this country. That's a group self-interest. You've been inculcated and coordinated and brainwashed and believing that you got some obligation and responsibility to save the world. You got to save everybody first before you save yourself. Now, I'm a pilot. I don't fly anymore. I'm too old to be flying. But one of the first things I would tell people on my plane as passengers, the first thing you do, if we lose cabin pressure at 30,000 feet, we don't have any cabin pressure at night over 10,000 feet. If you lose cabin pressure, a panel over your head will fall down.
Right.
When that mask falls down, the first thing you all should be doing is putting the mask on yourself. Quit trying to save everybody. Why has always got black folk marching, trying to save it? We're marching for gays. We're marching for women. We're marching for poor people. We're marching for the handicapped. And yet you own and control 1/2 of 1% of wealth. You haven't got a snowball's chance. And in the end of slavery, as I said, you had 1/2 of 1%. Guess what? The average white person at that point in time had 3,500 times more wealth than the average black. That means that 99% of everything in this country was in the white society, and it's still in the white society. I don't care from Vermont all the way to California, San Diego. 98% of everything of value is locked in the white society. 87% of it's frozen, locked into white society. You can't get it out. So all you got to compete for is about 13% is up for grabs. And if black folk don't learn how to compete for that 13%, you are through. And right now, that's what's happening around the world. You see all these, we're going to implode in this country. Same thing happening in Germany with the Jews. And there was a book out called Hitler's Willing Execution to say the same thing. When certain kind of things began to happen to you as a group, you better be very careful. And they wrote that as a big, thick book and about what's going to happen. And they started exterminating the Jews. Why? Because you got a group now that you all don't know about called the Council of 300. What they want to do now is say, we got too many people on the earth, and we're going to start losing resources. There aren't be enough resources left. We got water. We're going to have water shortages coming. And when water shortages come, what follows that is food shortages. Right now, 20% of the world is suffering from water shortages. We're going to start having water shortages in this country. We have water shortages and have food shortages. So what the council and all these rich people on the earth are saying is that we got to start getting rid of some of these people. We're going to start with the non-producers. Now, who are the non-producers in America? The only people in America that produces absolutely nothing except sweat is black folk.
That's real, though. I get what you're saying. I feel you.
No, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, right now, all of our people that are supposed to be successful, guess what? The only thing they produce is sweat. They're running with balls, football, basketball, baseball, tennis ball, golf ball, singing and dancing, producing sweat. Nobody's buying any damn sweat. And how are you going to feed yourself? Right. You don't produce anything. We don't have any industries. And we had a chance to get industries in 1700s when the Industrial Revolution went through Europe. Black folk were slaves. When the Industrial Revolution went through America in the 1800s, we were still enslaved. We own and control absolutely nothing.
You don't think that's changing now a little bit?
Oh, man, no. It's getting worse. As a matter of fact, let me give you a difference. Right now, we got all these people that you're running for public office talking about. We gotta look for eradicate poverty. You cannot eradicate poverty. Poverty is a fixed. It's a given. It's a given. You cannot eradicate poverty. Why? Because just like you can't eradicate, you got an up, you got a down, you got an in, you got an out. That is a fix. You cannot change it. And they always got people want to eradicate poverty. What you should be saying is leave poverty alone and go down and try to figure out how to get black folk out of poverty. Don't be trying to eradicate poverty. Leave poverty alone and get blacks out. And see, so they, what we need to have more equality. On a race-based society, you cannot have equality. It's impossible. The whole point of a race is a contest.
That's right.
See, a race, you all don't go to the Kentucky Derby to try to have all the horses being equal, do you?
No, you want one to win.
You got it again. You're a smart man. you want to see who comes in first, second, or place.
Right.
And so yet there's in a race-based society, why is it called a race? Race never started, never existed on the earth until the 1500s. See, and that's when it started. When a race, that's where racism comes from. They didn't pick racism just out of thin air.
It's a social construct.
It's a social construct.
Yeah.
It's a social construct. When they started, we're gonna start. Well, what we're gonna do now that Columbus discovered America? You got in 1492. We got a lot of land over there. It's pretty much vacant, and we need to go over there and try to get that land. And what they said is, well, let's go back. How are we gonna do it? And they said, well, let's see. Back in about 1446, we had a guy named Henry the Navigator that went around the coast of Africa, and he picked up about 16 blacks, Africans, and brought them back to Europe, gave them to the Pope in the Vatican. And the Pope said, we use these as slaves. And so the Vatican used blacks as slaves. That was one of the first ones, from about 1446 up to about 1488. Then Pope Innocent came out and said, well, having these people as slaves, that's a good thing. And so why is that important now? Because you see, the Fox Channel be telling you all, while blacks complain about being slaves, we've always had slaves. No, you have not. You may have had slaves, but not based on skin color. And Pope Innocent came out and says, in the future, don't enslave anybody based on the traditional manner. You can only enslave people for being either a prisoner of war or for personal indebtedness or religious persecution. He said, let's skip that now and enslave them based on skin color. That was her start. That's her trigger in 1488. So when Columbus discovered America in 1492, he had all this land over here. In that particular time.
Yeah, water for you if you need it.
Excuse me, thank you.
Yes, sir.
At that particular time, Europe was being decimated. Europe was under major problems. The entire European continent was being decimated with crime, famine, diseases. They didn't know what to do in the late 1400s and early 1500s. And all of a sudden they said, since Pope Innocent says that we got some people we can use now as slaves, and we got
Take your time, brother. We here. We got time.
I know you all gonna put me out of here in a few minutes.
No, you good.
Man, we got time. They've been waiting on you for years.
You tell me a tale.
No, I'm not. People been asking for you for years. We got time.
Okay, I don't want to take up all your time.
No, you good.
Ain't no white man coming in here with a sign saying, "Oh, get him up out of here. He talking all this shit."
So when Columbus discovered America, they had all this land, and Pope Innocent said, use these people. Let's have a new form of slavery. No longer based on religion, personal indebtedness, or prisoner of war. Let's use them skin color. And so by the 1500s, we can use that and save America. So a race started. A race is a contest. That contest started between 9 European nations. Portugal, they all said, let's get in the contest so we can go to the Americas first and capture all that land and build wealth. That's what they came here for. Now, you all get by that stuff about they believe in about the Constitution, but they came here for religious persecution. Nobody came here for no damn religious persecution. They came here for happiness. Nobody can get on a damn boat and sail across the Atlantic coming to America for happiness. Then that's stupid. They came here for enrichment. Every tourist immigrant came to America. They came here for personal enrichment. That's what they came here to get values, resources, and they started bringing. So all these countries were competing to try to capture Americas and build it up for enrichment. And that's what happened when they got to America, and later on, let me jump up. Now, they said, well, we got all this land now, and we got these people, let's draw the Constitution. That's what, so I told you a few minutes ago, they met in Philadelphia, says, let's take all this land. We're going to create a document called the Constitution. That was in 1789. We're going to ratify this. And we ratified, it's going to be a social construct that the bro here just mentioned to you. The construct is that, how are we going to do that? They said, well, at the top, let's all the Europeans that got money want to invest in the United States. They got rich people. Then that'll be the top scale. They can come here and get all the land. That's Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, all those guys, and Thomas Jefferson. They were wealthy people. They said underneath that, that's the top level. Underneath that, we'll set up a management class to bring in poor whites. They'd be the management class. And at the bottom, we're going to bring in these blacks. They have to be managed and classify them as property, as non-citizens. That way they'll never get anything. We got them locked in box. That's in the Constitution. And that's how they got you. And the first thing they did the next year in 1991, they passed the first immigration laws, says, let's bring in all these poor people. This is a nation, an immigrant nation. It's basically for whites only. And black folk, you are not citizens. You have no entitlements, no rights, and no privileges, and nothing. Everything we put into the hands of the dominant white society.
Why is it expected for black wealth to drop in the future?
Oh, for a certain reason, because increasingly, they know that you don't own anything. Wealth creates wealth. Wealth creates wealth. And when they're talking about slavery, what blacks don't have any wealth was because they took, whites captured your wealth. Labor is wealth. Labor, you can't have wealth without labor. That's the point I'm going to bring to you. It's impossible to have wealth without labor. And so in the 1500s, they said, well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to all in this race now. We're going to compete between the French, the Germans, the British, the Spain. We're going to go to America. We're going to compete to get the resources. And so they said, let's take this. So we're going to come up with a new thing called capitalism. Capitalism came out of the land and the Pope Innocent's thing about slavery. They said, when you go to America, here's what you're going to do. Practice capitalism. That means owning the land, the tools, the resources, and using someone else's labor to enrich yourselves. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And since black folk couldn't enrich themselves, everybody else came to the country, enriched themselves off of black folk. They took your labor from you, and then everybody became rich for it. And that's why when slavery ended, as I said a few minutes ago, the average white person had 3,500 times more wealth than blacks.
So how do we catch up now? How do we make sure that we can at least catch up on the financial freedom as much as possible?
You asked just asking a good question. You should be running for office instead of Booker and Harris.
They all light skinned. They can do it.
Yeah, you
can fit in.
You all are funny, and you're right on target. No, you do it. You start in the books, as I said in my books. Mm-hmm. First thing you develop two things they took from you in slavery. Took two things from you that are key to getting to the points you are on how you're going to solve it. One, they stripped you of your wealth. Mm-hmm. Your labor was your wealth. You never gained anything from it. They got it and captured it and spread it around. And that's like in resources. For instance, land. Everybody coming to the country got land but you as a race. When they said we're going to start building wealth based on land. And George Washington, the first one, says, well, if all the wealth is going to be in the land, I want 100,000 acres of free land. And then Thomas Jefferson said, well, if he's going to get 100,000 acres of free land, I want 100,000 acres of free land. Then Patrick Henry, you all read about in your history book, that said, give me liberty, give me death. He also said, hell, give me some land. I want 65,000 acres of free land. And so what the white society did while blacks were being enslaved, they gave every immigrant coming to the country, as soon as his foot hit the ground, he picked up over 750 acres of free land per immigrant. Hmm. Then for every slave they owned, they got another 150 acres of free land. And so after about 100 years, this country had given away over 2 billion. They gave away 2 billion acres of free land to immigrants. Now why is that? Now that's where your wealth is. Now in that land, not only the value of the land, but in that land, what do they have on? They got timber, gold, chrome, magnesium, gold, silver, oil.
It's resources.
Resources.
Yeah.
That's the resources. Blacks don't have it in resources.
Mm-hmm.
So when you came and say, I want 40 acres of a mule, they said you got to be crazy. I'm not gonna give you 40 acre mule. We just gave away 2 billion. We're gonna give you anything. And other Europeans came in about the same time with 1862. They gave this away, and all the newcomers, you're gonna get 150. And coming from Europe, you cross the Mississippi River to develop the Western countries. They gave away 20. They gave it 20 in 24 hours. They gave away over 2 million acres of free land. Mm. They started railroad lines, 11 railroad lines. They gave them 24 million acres of free land. But blacks never got any land. So what we're gonna do now to play the game to answer your question. Mm-hmm. We got to go for resources. But the two things that are hurting us, we don't have any resources because they stole that. The second thing you don't have is they stole your social cohesiveness.
You mean as far as like unity and group operation?
That's right. That's
okay.
Right. They did not allow you to play the game, to be together, come together. Mm-hmm. That was a threat. It's intimidating. It was intimidating during slavery. It's intimidating right now for black folks to start talking about coming together.
Because from what you said, if we got 13% of whatever we're fighting over, makes it seem like it's not enough for everybody.
That's right. It's not enough. It's the survival of the fittest. Mm-hmm. Who is the survival of the fittest and the strongest. And so, that's where they made the biggest mistake. They took black folk and misled the wrong way. Went into social integration rather than trying to get the resources.
Well, when Dr. King was pivoting to go get them resources, that's when they killed him.
That's right. But that's why. Did you hear that point? Say it again.
When Dr. King was pivoting from civil rights and civil liberties to go get that money, that's when they killed him. When he was organizing the Poor People's Campaign.
That's right.
Yeah.
They killed him then because you know why? Because Martin Luther King, right before he got assassinated, 3 months before that, you know what he said to the country? He said, I got to admit, he said, I think I made a big mistake.
Yeah.
He said, I think I've led black folk into a burning building.
Burning building, yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And because he says, There's no you say you cannot have social integration unless you have economic integration, and you cannot have economic integration unless you do what? Unless you redistribute some of these resources into the hands of black folk, and that's when they killed him.
Yes, sir.
They ain't gonna turn it loose.
What did you think of Barack Obama being president?
But Barack Obama is a joke. Barack Obama didn't do a darn thing for black folk. As a matter of fact, he hurt black folk in two ways. First of all, he had 8 years to do something for black folk, but he carefully and judiciously involved and judiciously avoided doing anything for black folk. And most of my white friends told me in politics, and I was always with president governors, they say, hell, we would never have voted for Obama if we'd known he's going to do something for black folk. We knew he would never do anything for black folk. And so, but that's the first thing. He never did anything for black folk. But he used that old thing that they did back in Philadelphia in 1789. He used very broad, ambiguous terms. I'm the president of all the people.
They like to say a rising tide lifts all boats.
That's a stupid thing.
Yeah, because black people boat got a hole in it.
That's right. It's in the bottom of the damn lake.
Yeah.
See, but black folk, well, if a rising tide would lift all boats, if a rising tide would lift all boats, why isn't all these immigrants coming here and building industries and businesses and blacks were slaves? Why didn't they rise? Because they were excluded. Black people are outside and underneath the system. You're outside and underneath the system. And so they don't let you come together. And how they stop you from coming together, since they wouldn't let you coalesce during slavery, they come up with this whole concept called social integration. Social integration is a divisive issue. It divides you. It doesn't pull you together. It's a weakening process. You understand what I'm saying, bro? Mm-hmm. It weakens you. If I put a cup of coffee right now in front of you and pour cream in it, do I make it stronger?
Hell no, you make it weaker.
That's right. So black folk went for social integration.
I've always asked, has integration helped to harm the black community? I think it harmed.
Knocked the black folks' brains out. Black folk had up 100 times more before social integration hit. See, I'm old enough to tell you all that. You all not old enough to know that yet. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, see, we had something. We didn't have the resources we needed as much as we needed, but we had something. We had one of the things that's key to get to your question about where do we start. We had communities. We had communities all over America. In every city had a major community. Here, Harlem, places like that. We had our communities. We didn't have everything we wanted, but it was ours.
Yeah, we only hear about Black Wall Street. Sometimes you hear about Bronzeville in Chicago. Right. I can't remember the town in North Carolina, but we don't hear about that. They were literally those communities all over the country.
That's right. Well, Sweet Auburn and Atlanta, Georgia, that's had all the big hotels, fine restaurants, and everything. In North Carolina, what you're talking about now, see, I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Let me use that as an example. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and we were looking for this social integration. You know why? Because we had our own businesses there. We had our own businesses. My family was part of one that had the only black bus line in the entire United States. The only black bus line. And when I say we had a bus line, I'm not talking about 2 or 3 buses. We had over 500 buses.
Wow.
In Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And guess what? We had that from 1927 up to about 1967. In Winston-Salem, we also had our own cab companies. We had our own restaurants. We had our own hotels. We had our own school systems. And the bus lines, an example, we don't kill our buses.
What?
Social integration. When all of a sudden, you all start talking about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King going down to Alabama, want to integrate the bus lines. Integrate whose bus lines? White bus lines. What they want? They didn't want to own and control and get the resource. They just want to sit on the front of it.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of, you tell me, what does that indicate? Now, if you want to get on a bus, and what you want to do is just want to sit on the front of it. Mm. Now, if the bus is moving, then the back of the bus will be where the front of the bus will move in a fraction of a second. And everybody gets off at the same time. And so in Winston-Salem, we had our own buses. And so when that movement was successful in Alabama, came up to Winston-Salem, and blacks in Winston-Salem says, we want to ride on front of some white buses. So we said, we don't have any white buses. They said, well, we'll get some so we can ride on the front of them.
I feel like a complete asshole because I never thought about that. Like that whole time they did the boycott, they should have been trying to establish their own bus company as opposed to wanting to ride. I never thought about that. Y'all boycotted for a year just to want to ride on the front?
See, you're a smart man.
I never thought about that.
But you got it now, right?
Yeah.
You said, no, what difference does it make with them sitting on the front or the back? See, in our Safe Bus Company, SAF, you can go to your computer and find out about the Safe Bus Company in Winston-Salem. See, we own the buses.
Mm-hmm.
We own the resources. All of our mechanics were blacks. All of our drivers were blacks. Electricians were black. Everything was black. And so they said, well, we just want to ride on the front of their buses. We had 2 cab companies in Winston-Salem.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? As a resource, whites had 3 cab companies. No, they had 2 cab companies. They had the Bluebird and the Yellow Cab. We had the Harris and the Camel City cabs. But guess what? When that integration movement started, what they wanted to do? Blacks didn't want to ride black cabs anymore. They wanted to ride in white cabs.
Mm.
In Winston-Salem, we had our own movie theaters. We had the Lincoln and Lafayette. There was a Lincoln and Lafayette theater in every major city and every black community in America.
Mm-hmm.
And whites had 3 movie theaters. They had the Farsight, Carolina, and State Theater. We didn't care, but we had our own movie theaters. And so guess what? Blacks didn't want to go to the black theaters anymore. They want to go to the white theaters.
We swear white ice is cold.
Sure did. And you might not believe this, but I saw that happen once, though. I'm going to jump off what I was talking about over a second. I was in Tallahassee, Florida, giving a speech down there, and I'm standing on the street corner talking to the black real estate developer there. I'm talking to him, and I noticed across the street there was a black guy on the grocery store over there. And the guy pulled up while we were talking. We just watching like we're talking now. He pulled up, went over to the parked by that grocery store, went over to the ice machine, opened up the ice container, pulled out a bag of ice, looked at the ice and rolled it around, looked at it, then put it back into the machine. And then he turned right around his car, backed it up, and came right across the street where we were to a thing called Jack's Liquor, and went and got out of his car and went into the ice machine. Same company, same ice, owned by the same company. The ice machines owned by the same company. He went in there, looked at it, and rolled it around, took it, went in and bought it. And I said, I haven't seen that before. I said, now when he comes out, I'm going to ask him. I said, come here, sir, let me ask you a question. I said, why is that you would not buy the ice from the ice machine over there with the black grocery store, but you came over here to Jack's Liquor and bought the ice? I said, why did you buy it over here? He said, oh, I didn't want to buy Mr. Williams' ice over there. He said, I don't like his ice. It's too lumpy. White ice is smoother. I said, damn.
Lord have mercy.
I said, I knew white ice would be colder, but now I found it's smoother.
Lord have mercy. Let me ask you a question. When all of that was going on in Montgomery, when they was boycotting the buses, and y'all own 500 buses, did you ever say, hey, let's go go down there and set up shop, or send them some buses?
No. Our bus comes over. We had about a partnership of about three or four black families.
Okay.
And they were just struggling, just trying. And now they were not that sophisticated to try to interfere.
Mm-hmm.
And because blacks in those days were independent, we stayed in our own independent section. But our bus lines were very effective. We were proud of them, proud to ride in black cabs. But black folk just never learned the importance of owning and controlling. So going back to your question again, I keep deviating. So I apologize to you.
That's all good.
We'll put it all together.
Yeah, we'll put it all together.
Okay. Is that you got to own it. First, you got to go after resources.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to come together first, and you got to develop a sense of cohesiveness. And your sense of cohesiveness should be based around your strongest identification, cosmetic appearance, which is your skin color.
Mm-hmm.
Your greatest commonality is not what schools you went to, what neighborhoods you lived in, who your parents were, how much money you have. That's not your greatest commonality. Your greatest commonality is your skin color.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be saying, we got to come together as a team. Why? Because Dr. Anderson told us that racism is a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
You either play as a team or you lose by default. If you got enough sense to go out and play as a team on a basketball court or a football court, why don't you play as a team as a race? So we have to start playing as a team. Now, once you start learning to play as a team, what's the next thing you must get? Next thing you must get is establish some turf. You must say, I must have a turf to operate on.
Land, real estate.
Land, that's right. And since they would not give you the 40 acres, you have no turf. You had a community, they stripped that. And that's why in the 1950s, when you start talking about social integration, they came up with a concept called black removal. They used the 1956 Highway Act to drive an expressway through every black community in America and destroyed it. You want to find the old black communities in America? Go find the expressway. It went right through it. And so that ran black folk. And so why? Because white folk could then get in that on the expressway and get to a new thing they built called suburbs. We never had suburbs before. But the suburbs came out of the fact that whites wanted to get away from blacks and blacks wanted to socially integrate. And so the whites, we abandoned these black folk and moved to the suburbs and take all of the what with us? Resources.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take all the industries, the factories, the automobile dealerships, the banks, the culture, the money, the wealth, the power, and relocate it in the suburbs. And we'll strip these urban areas. So these black folk, they come in, they can't run an urban city. You can't run Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, Philadelphia. You can't run it because you won't be in the resources available to you. And so when the white folks say, you all weren't smart enough to run a city, that's y'all just let the city run down. No, they ran it down for you. They use a policy called burnt fields, scorched earth policy. Saying we leave here, we're taking everything out.
And the only resources that they'll have is the drugs that we put here.
That's right.
The guns that we put here.
That's right.
Yeah, so they'll have to resort to crime and violence to survive.
You're a smart man again.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? See what most of our civil rights leaders don't understand, our elected officials don't understand. There's only 3 things that a black person can do to earn a living. Only 3 things. You either have a business up here, a job. That's the top. If you don't have that, you go down to the second level. Second level, you go on some kind of social services, food stamps, welfare, public housing. If you don't have that, then you must go to the last level, which is commit crime. And so a black person must have a combination, sophistication, or elaboration of 3 things: welfare, jobs, business, or going down to crime. And when they did that, they divide that up. White crime would be called civil crime. Black crime would be called blue collar crime. Blue collar crime, you go to jail. White collar crime, you go into the criminal courts.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the conversation that they're having about reparations now?
Well, I've spent about 60 years. That's what books for. Most of that dialogue is being generated by my books.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, most of the people now that are trying to latch on to the reparation movement don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They're Johnny come lately are claim jumpers. They want to jump in on their movement just to get their name in the paper. They don't have a plan about what they're going to do for reparations. But black folk entitled reparations. You had a chance to get some of it. Let me go back in history again. See, I told you in the first, you got 2. Most people don't know this, but you got 2 constitutions. Mm-hmm. You got the first constitution was 1789. That's a 1 through 12 amendment, and those amendments gave whites everything they needed. That's why white folk didn't have all these. They didn't have any big demands other than what was in the Constitution. So from 1789 up to 1860, the first Constitution was in effect, Amendment 1 through 12. But what happened after that was that in 1857, we'll go back about 3 years, you had a black man went to court called Dred Scott. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Sure. He went to court trying to get some freedom based on the fact that he moved across state lines out of the South. He thought he was going to be free and went to court. And finally, the Supreme Court ruled against him and said, no, you cannot free. Why? He said, why? And it's basically because in this country, because you're considered to be property. You're property in the Constitution. You're a citizen. You're not non-citizen in the Constitution. You have no rights. You have no rights. So therefore, a black person has no rights that a white person is bound to respect. And that was in 1857. So when the Civil War was over, after the Civil War was over, what they wanted to do, you had some white Republicans, liberal ones, saying we got to go back and give black folks something. We got to give them something. And so they said, we're going to start a second constitution. The 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendment and the Civil Rights Laws constitute a second constitution of the United States. 99.5% of all the people in America don't understand that. They don't understand you got 2 constitutions. The first constitution was the one that 1789 all the way up to the amendments 1 through 12. 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. That was written strictly and solely for black folk. But I never had any black folk yet. The Harris and the Bookers that are running for office, they don't understand that. Mm-hmm. That they should be fighting, saying, we got 2 constitutions. If I get elected to public office, I'm going to go back to that second constitution and try to get those things that were set aside for black folk. And what was that? The radical Republicans says that in 1860 in the United States Congress, that in this nation, black folk can either be 1 or 2 things. You're going to be slaves or you're going to be free. To be free in America as black people, you must minimally have 40 acres and a mule. And $100. That's where that saying came from. You must have 40 acres and a mule and $100. And But what happened after that was said, then you had the guardians of racism kill it. The United States Supreme Court is a guardian of racism. The Supreme Court is my primary purpose is to make sure nothing changes racial issues in America. That's why the United States Supreme Court has never ruled effectively to the benefit of black folk. And so as soon as they enacted the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment, and the civil rights laws. And the civil rights law says that black folk must have certain benefits. They set up freedmen banks and everything else. But the United States Constitution came in and killed it. Supreme Court came in and killed it. You ever heard of what's called period of Reconstruction? Reconstruction was? Between 1865, it was a 10-year period between 1865 and 1875. It was called Reconstruction. Now, what I tell black folk is that you should be saying, why did they call it Reconstruction? It was reconstruct. What do you mean by reconstruct? The first Constitution was a social construct that locked you into the bottom barrel permanently. Reconstruction that took place between 1865 and 1875 says redo the thing, give black folk a chance. And it's supposed to go on forever, but the United States Supreme Court jumped in and killed it in 1875, and it only lasted 10 years. They came in and said, no, we're not going to give black folk anything. Set them free with no land, no rights, no privileges, no tools, no animals, no house, no homes, no organization, no education, no animals, nothing. And tell them to root, hog, or die.
Mm.
And that's why Trump right now is stacking your courts with conservative Supreme Court justice.
Over 160.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
People haven't even realized that yet.
What? I'm sorry, say it again?
I said people haven't even realized that 160 lifetime federal judges he's appointed.
That's right.
Some of the most racist, bigoted bastards you ever gonna meet.
Right. Well, that's right. See, what they don't understand in the Supreme Court, the first 57 Supreme Court justices were slave owners. Did you know that?
No, sir.
You got it now, brother. First 57 were slave owners. And the other 6 or 7, about another 6 or 7, have been white racists. That's why right now you got a Supreme Court sitting there with 9 people on it. What they're telling you is that justice in America for black folk can only be seen through the eyes of whites.
Mm.
You can't see it otherwise. That's why you got 9 people on the Supreme Court. You got 9 people. You got 9 whites there. One pretending he's trying to be black.
Clarence Thomas.
But none of them take up any issues for black folk. Let's go to the lower level, the federal courts. I know I'm running past my time.
No, you good?
Man, go ahead, brother.
Okay.
You good?
Okay, let's go to the federal courts. Now, since Trump has been in office, he's put in about 40-some federal judges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
No, more than that.
You know how many's got?
That's 160.
Okay, I don't know where I've been keeping track. Now, think about that. I've been giving you all a lot of dates.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution, 1789, remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Up from 1789 all the way up to 1948. The United States, know how many federal judges they appointed during that period? 1,400 federal judges between 1789 and 1948. Why did I say 1948? That was the first time they appointed a black to a federal judgeship. All the federal judges were whites. Now, 1948. Now, between 1948 and up to about 1990, or 1980 is the later point, at that point, they put in about another 30. They put in 30 black judges. Now, when I'm in the White House with President Carter, and at that time, Strom Thurmond was over the Judiciary Committee for the Republican Party.
Now, that's a cracker. That's a cracker-ass cracker. I'm from South Carolina, so
that's
I know.
Right.
Yes,
South
sir.
Carolina.
Don't get no worse than him.
And that's why I was born in South Carolina. So he comes up to me, and I told you a few minutes ago, I was over the property disposal program. I had full authorization. I'm the only black in the history of the nation. I had full authorization to give away federal property as a black man. All it needed was my signature. I had 45 people on my staff down in Charleston, South Carolina. I could send them out whatever they want. Strom Thurmond came to me and said, Dr. Anderson, I need some things in South Carolina. I said, what do you want? He said, I need some couple of bulldozers. I need about 10 or 20 Quonset huts, some other things down there. And he said, can you help me? I said, sure, I can help you. I can take care of that. I said, but by the same token, I'm the only black up here. Since I'm the chairman for economic development, and I'm assistant secretary in commerce, and I'm over this program. You and I got to have a little quid pro quo. He said, what do you need? I said, I want some black federal judges. He said, what do you tell me what you got, and I get it for you. I said, I want at least three right now. I want them black federal judges. I said, I'm going to put Al C. Hastings. out of Broward County. I want him to be a federal judge. I said, I want Judge Joe Hatchett out of Jacksonville, Florida. I want him to be a federal judge. Another black guy out of San Diego. I want him to be a federal judge. And so Strong Thurman said, you got it. Now, here's the irony there. Now, they appointed from 1948 up to that point in time, you've had about 30 black federal judges. How is it that Claud Anderson can get 3 federal judges? You got 46 million black folk, they couldn't get a damn thing. They're in politics, social, you see what I'm saying? Civil rights leaders.
They're not
Black
asking.
elected officials, huh?
They're not asking.
See, that's my point. They don't demand a damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, going back to your question, you're never getting anything until you started demanding. And the first thing you should be demanding is what they didn't do during the civil rights movement. They should have gone back in 1960s instead of talking about social integration.
That money.
Thank you.
Economic empowerment.
In economics.
That's right.
You should have said, hold it. And I told them at that time, they had a big march in Detroit, Michigan, down Woodward from Jefferson Avenue down to Wayne State University. And they're going to march down there. And Martin Luther King was leading that. And Malcolm X was there too that time. And I was opposed to it. I said, what are you trying to do? Well, we want to go out here and integrate the suburbs. I said, if we're 51% of the population in Detroit, why do you want to go out to the white suburbs? Let them go out there and stay out there. No, that's not right. We got to integrate it. And so they have a march. The first thing they talked to was Malcolm X. And they said, and the newspaper says, Malcolm, what do you think about this march down Woodward from Jefferson down to Wayne State University to integrate suburbs? And Malcolm says, what march? He said, that march down, they're coming down. He said, that's not a march. So the newspaper said, what is it? He said, that's a damn parade. He said, like any parade, you got a bunch of clowns out front leading it.
Mm-hmm.
He says, no. And said, don't integrate these communities. Leave black folk intact. That's why no Arabs, no Asians, no Hispanics, nobody's coming to America trying to socially integrate with black folk.
That's always been the NOI way, though. Nation of Islam always was like, let's build our own.
Thank
do
you.
for self. Yeah.
But see, black folk, I just got to be with somebody else. And see, and so the conclusion of this is that I got to get your point. I got to go back to this.
That's all right.
I keep leaving it. First, you build these communities.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we do not have not one single black community in America. Mm-hmm. Not one. It's impossible for you to play as a community. Means you got a team. People got mutual understandings, interests, and direction and plans. You have not one black community in America. All you got are black neighborhoods. A neighborhood is where you eat and sleep. A hotel is a neighborhood. A neighborhood is like having a bucket with holes in it. You're pouring water in it. It runs out. It has no effect. And in some of these neighborhoods, it's gotten so bad now, they're not even neighborhoods anymore. The crime has gotten so high, they ran a neighbor out. All you got left is a hood.
That's right.
That's why they call it the hood. Nothing left in there. They don't have any communities. They have a community, you must have 3 elements to make a community, qualify as a community. You must have a wholly independent economic structure that can produce jobs, services, goods, products, and resources for your own people. 2, the second thing you must have in there, you must have a code of conduct, saying this is how we're going to behave. Here's how we're going to love and support each other. Here's how I'm going to get along. Here's why when I go to the Breakfast Club, I'm going to love and respect those blacks on there, appreciate them, care about them, protect them. And lastly, you must have politicians elected to office who will represent you first and foremost. You don't put black folk in public office that will look out for everybody else before they look out for you. If you don't have those 3 things, you don't have a community. All you got are neighborhoods. And that's what we got in this country, with no neighborhoods. And once you get that neighborhood, then you go to Anderson's 5-story building. And this is how you get your wealth and power, to go back to my friend's name. What's the word?
Charlemagne.
Charlemagne. Go
Yes,
back
sir.
to Charlemagne's initial question. Now, you got to go back in that community and do what I told you in my books. You must build a 5-story building. Once you get a community, that's your platform. That's your baseline. It's because you got turf and territory. It's like building a house. Mm-hmm. Now you got something to situate it on. You can't build a house with nothing. It has to be structured on something. And once you got that foundation, that community, now the first thing you work on is economics. You started practicing group economics in a vertical order. Practicing group economics, making your money bounce in your own community 8 to 12 times before it leaves. Spend your money with your own people first. Buy from your own people first. So you get an economy going in your community. Buying your own people's products, services, and goods. like you do in Chinatown, any other town, Mexican town. And once you get that economy going, then then you get the profits coming, the resources, the money coming in from your economy. Then you go to the second floor. The second floor is politics. Our people got that backwards. They want to get into politics before they get in the economy. Backwards as hell. You won't make it. Mm-hmm. And the politics is the second floor. I learned that before I ran campaigns when I was in office with 2 presidents. Okay, it won't work. You get politics at the second floor. And don't worry about voting. Voting is immaterial. Voting is a game. It's a form of entertainment. So when you get to the second floor, you take the money that you get from the first floor and you buy the second floor. You buy every politician. You buy every politician with the money you made on the first floor.
So should we vote at all?
I'll tell you that in 1 second.
Okay.
If you got enough money, if you haven't got enough money to buy them, then you rent or lease them, okay? So you can get what you want. Make them do what you want to do. And then you make those politicians then go to the third floor. The third floor is your political, if it's your court system, your police system. Mm-hmm. And make those politicians on the second floor control the politicians who quit shooting black kids on the street and mistreating and beating black folk. Mm-hmm. You control the court system so they won't be getting 40 years in jail from marijuana and all that kind of stuff. You got it. So your second floor controls your third floor, your courts, you control your judges and stuff, just like I'm talking about with Trump and all that. Mm-hmm. Then the fourth floor, what you get into is media. You take your money off the first floor and you buy media. You got about 12,000 radio stations in the United States. Out of that 12,000, black folks should own a major portion, at least 15% of them. You got 12,000 cable systems. Blacks don't own it. Basically, none of them hardly. You have 5,000 daily newspapers. They don't own a damn daily newspaper. You got 5,000 TV stations. Blacks might own one someplace or two at the best. You don't own. In other words, black folk own 35 thousandths of 1% in media. Mm-hmm. You don't own media, you can't communicate, you can't organize, you can't motivate. And so that's the structure. If you want to build your wealth and power, that's how you do it. You and once you build that economy, spend your money with your own people, make it bounce 8 to 10 times. In this country right now, Hispanics. Let's take Hispanics. Hispanics bounce their money on an average of 6 to 7 times in Mexican time. Little Havana, little Cuba. White folks typically bounce their money 8 to 12 times. Arabs bounce and Arabs and Asians bounce their money about 13 or 14 times. Jews bounce their money about 18 times. Black money doesn't bounce once. As soon as a black person gets paid, he runs straight to somebody else's business and gives them their money. That means they go bankrupt every night. Every black neighborhood goes bankrupt every night at 7 o'clock. Stays bankrupt until next morning. They don't own any damn businesses. When the white man or somebody else closes their doors, they go bankrupt. So, well, we overcome and we're progressing. Wait, where's the progress? Oh, someplace. Well, we got social progress. Now, let me jump back to that a second. I was born in South Carolina. Let me show you how they got off track. Mm-hmm. I still got time, bro?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's go back to South Carolina. McClinton, South Carolina, way back in 1948. They filed a lawsuit. You know why? Against the county and the state. Because they were not appropriating the resources in McClinton, South Carolina, strong thermal territory. They weren't appropriating anything. And so for the average black kid, they put in $1.50 for a black child to go to school on an average. For white kids, they were getting $12 to $13 to go to school. And so there was a misappropriation, maldistribution of the money just to go to school. Black kids get $1.50, white kids get $12 or $13. Mm-hmm. That was the first thing. White kids are riding to school on buses. Black kids walked in snow, mud, rain, anything, bushes to get to school. Teachers are black teachers get something like $6 or $7 a week paycheck. White teachers getting something like $25 or $30 for a day for getting paid. Everybody, and we went to school. Guess what? All the best materials. A black child got to school in McClinton, South Carolina. He spent the first week of school with big art gun erasers cleaning up the books and materials because whites sent all the old used materials over to the black schools. And then you had to spend your whole first week taping up the pages in the book, cleaning them up, wiping them down, getting all the trash off of them, the gum, the food, and everything else. We got the hand-me-downs. White kids got all the new equipments. When we went to school, we walked past the white schools. Guess what? White schools had tennis courts. When the black schools had, They had 2 poles with a piece of wire between it for a tennis court. White schools had swimming pools. We, you know what we did? We had to go down and dam up the creeks. We swam in the creeks by damming up the creeks and swimming in them. We had swimming holes. White kids got everything. So what the Clinton, South Carolina black parents are saying is that we want equal resources. We want resources. That's why I focus on this as a forensic historian. We wanted resources. We don't give a damn about nothing else. That lawsuit was filed about 1948. It bounced around and finally got to the Supreme Court by 1953 and 54. At that point in time, it was the Supreme Court. Here comes the NAACP. And what they wanted to do then was to say, well, let's have social integration rather than redistribution of the resources. And that way, so we don't want anything black anymore. Let's get rid of all the black schools. Let's get rid of everything black. And so that's how the social integration replaced. What black folk wanted was desegregation. Stop using government to mistreat us and hurt us and maldistribute the wealth. And when I took over education for the state of Florida, I asked the Department of Education. What are you going to do what does social integration mean to you in Florida? What are you going to do with the schools in Florida? They said, Dr. Hans, what we're going to do, we're going to close down all the black schools. We're going to fire the black teachers, fire the black counselors, fire the black administrators, bus 75% of the black kids into white schools, and put the other 25% of the black kids in the special education classes. I said, that's BS. And I had to fight, and here comes some of the civil rights organizations. Dr. Hans, you were interfering with social integration. I don't give a damn about social integration. That's a negative. But anyway, I just want to get that point in.
What was the fifth floor? I think I might have missed that.
Oh, I missed it.
You said economics, politics, politicians, media.
Education on the top.
Education.
And,
all right.
And again, the fifth floor was education. And here again, based on my collective experiences, I got 6 college degrees and been in all levels of government, from the highest to the lowest, international politics, head of trade missions in third world countries. I said, black folks should understand education is the last thing. Education is a tool, just like a hammer and a saw. But you got to have an economy to be able to use it. That's why these black kids go get a damn degree. They can't get a job in the black community. They got to go back to a white community, somebody else's community, to somebody else's business, and ask for a job. And once you do that, white people place the value on what your education is worth. That's why I can go past McDonald's and Burger King, got black kids there with master's degrees, mopping floors and working as clerks with degrees, college degrees in Burger Kings and McDonald's. You understand what I'm saying? Because they got master's degrees, but they mastered nothing. And so because we don't have an economy. You see, when a kid graduates from school, the first thing you do, he should be able to go back to his own community and start building businesses and industries and drawing money into his community and holding it. And see, the Asians learn that way back, and they learn it very quickly. That's why they come in, they figure about after 5th year in school, meaning after they graduate from the degree, they work at a job, 2 or 3 jobs, by 5 years. By the 6th year, they're going to have their own factories and industries, businesses. Right. That's why 1 out of every Asian has a business. 1 out of every 35 whites have a business. 1 out of every 53 Hispanics have a business. Only 1 out of about 105 blacks have a business.
Wow. Well, we appreciate you joining us in this great conversation.
Man, listen, Dr. Claud got all of this work if you need it. Okay?
That's right.
Black label, white wealth, more dirty little secrets.
Sure. Get the camera on this.
Hey, we got it. Dirty little secrets.
We got the camera on.
A black reader.
Oh, you got it already?
Powernomics right here. If you want to get more from Dr. Claud Anderson, he got plenty of information to give you.
And see, what I want on those books, I wrote those books for a very specific reason, that I need help from you all. I can't get them into the school system.
Really?
Yeah, because every state has a book selection committee. It's all white. And whites are basically homicidal, not suicidal. They ain't gonna put it in my book.
They're not gonna kill themselves.
They ain't gonna kill them.
Yeah.
We're gonna tell the blacks how to practice group economics.
Yeah.
And so, even in the black college campus, you're gonna guess who? Barnes and Noble have all the bookstores on the black college campus is owned by whites. Book selection committee is all whites. I go down to Alabama. There's a Dr. Answer. We love you, but we only got 1 black book in the whole state of in that state of Alabama.
The Bible.
Yeah, that's 1 book, but only 1 copy of that. And all the damn universities can only get 1 in. And I said, but I want my books in all the charter schools, the public schools, They can't get them in there.
How can they reach you if they want to make that happen?
See, I need y'all to make it happen. Y'all just raise cans and say, hey, there's no way. For instance, Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X academies, they were using the Dirty Little Secrets books there.
Mm-hmm.
See these Dirty Little Secrets books here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. See these 2 books?
Mm-hmm.
There are over 1,000 short stories, factoids in here about things that people never knew about black folk, but black folk achievements. They show you that nothing on this earth in the United States has happened that black folk did not either cause or not indirectly involved in.
So this is right in time for Black History Month.
That's right.
February, they should have all of these in charter schools and everywhere.
That's right. But they got a group called Syngate that controls what goes into black college campuses. And see, I had 2 radio stations, but right now I'm involved in that anymore. I need somebody like you all to say, no, our black kids need to have a better understanding of history.
Absolutely.
Y'all understand?
Right.
I know y'all don't want to do that. But
No, of course. I got my man Steve Perry. He's over at charter school. My homegirl Stacey Shells. He's a superintendent in Chicago. You know what I mean? So, yeah, like definitely.
We'll definitely reach out.
Okay. Can I count on you all to just raise some hell? Demand something.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. What having you on radio is going to start, and we're going to need you to come up here more frequently.
It's going to be it's black educators watching this right now saying, yes, we need those books in our school.
That's
right.
Right.
Now.
Thank you. And tell black kids that right now, it was up until 1948, no white author would put anything about blacks in books. Wouldn't do it. That's why when I examined all the books in the state of Florida, I said, you got to change this. That's why I got lawsuits right now, 1866 Indian treaties. And I found out most black didn't know that those Indian treaties were for black folk. And even though Obama, every year he was in office, he called 564 white Indian chiefs that come to the White House, give them everything they want.
Is that why you use the term Native blacks as opposed to African Americans?
That's right, Native blacks. Mm-hmm. And I want to help all blacks on the earth. But if you don't use the word Native blacks, you shoot yourself in the head.
Gotcha.
Because if you say African American, the first human beings came out of Africa. Anybody on earth that comes to America is an African American. You can be white and come from Europe tomorrow. You're an African American.
That makes total sense.
And that's the first thing that hurts. So you can't. That's a very, very broad term. Who's an African American? Anybody can be an African American. Okay. Secondly, why is Native American important? Because this nation owes black folk. 98% of all the black people in America were here before 98% of all the other people ever arrived. Those native blacks, and the reason I say native because when they took them out of Africa, they stripped them of their Africanness. They took away their names, everything, their culture, their history. Then they had a seasoning process for a slave. 3 months was to break him in to being a slave, that he could no longer be identified with African anything, that he was just black, period. But see, and so the government right now owes black people, native blacks. They don't know African. They don't know African anything. If you say you're an African American, whites say, shoot, I don't know. We never enslaved in Africa. We enslaved some blacks. We got in here, but they weren't Africans. We stripped them of an Africanness. Mm-hmm. And the last thing, your blackness is your honor, your culture, your history.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's your experience.
That's right.
And we had a very unique experience that makes us exceptional people.
That's why I say it's a privilege to be black.
That's right.
It's an honor to be in this melanin.
That's right. You just tell, as long as you live, you remember me telling you this day, that you are a special people. Nobody has been mistreated and maltreated like you all. Now, any immigrant came to this country has never been subjected to what 460 years what black folk are subjected to. Don't say you. See, one of the biggest lies being told is that, we are all together and we are, and everybody coming to America has contributed equally to the development of this nation. That's a lie. Black folk were the ones, the economic engines that drove the development of this nation. You're the one that built the bridges, the roads, the highways, picked the cotton, the rice, the indigo. You understand what I'm saying?
That's right.
Nobody else here out working out there but you. They said, well, white women, they're a minority too. They were in the house with the white man. They co-own, co-control, co-influence, and inherit 100% of everything the white man had. It ain't about gender. Don't get confused about talking about gender issues. Don't mix gender with race, with blacks. A race is a contest between the white man and the black man. Period. Mm-hmm. But they're going to try to confuse you by saying, well, we got the 14th Amendment. That's for everybody. No, it's not. It was for black folk. The 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendment was strictly for black people.
13th, 14th, 15th.
15th Amendment and the Civil Rights Laws. Those Civil Rights Laws were strictly for black folk. Mm-hmm. But again, they diluted it down and concluding, I'm going to conclude now. They dilute it down by saying this, that after the Civil War was over, the North said, we're going to bring in all these immigrants into the country, and they don't want to go south. They want to go west and develop the West. And the South said, yeah, and for us, now that the Civil War is over, we're going to give amnesty to all the Confederates soldiers. And not only we give amnesty, they should be shot as terrorists, since the southern states, the Confederacy, were terrorists in America. They should be castrated and lynched for being terrorists, for having attacked this nation. Those same red states are the same red states now that are voting that are backing Trump. That's the same Confederate. They were the first terrorists in America. They're still terrorizing America, still terrorizing black folk. But instead of punishing them, the North says, look, we're going to give you back your land, and if you want the blacks, you go ahead and keep them. Keep them in the South in 1860. And that way, and South said, we need them because even though we got the land back, we got back all the land after we attacked the nation, we got back everything, but the land is no good unless we have a labor class. And so the North says, the Northern whites say, you can have those blacks back again. And he went back and he went into what we call Jim Crow segregation or peonage on the black codes that locked those blacks into semi-slavery for another 100 years and used them down there from 1860 up to 1960. And that's why when they came out, they should have gone after redistributing the wealth and resources instead of messing around with social integration and civil rights. That's not going to help black folk. Your opportunities in America, they're defined about what you own and control. I want you all to get as much money as you can get. My Powernomics says that poor people cannot help poor people. Y'all got to get some money and resources. And once you get it, then try to help your people. And the last point is, don't let anybody tell you that black folk are racist. A black person cannot be a racist. It's impossible in theory and practice for a black person to be a racist. Just because you focus on your own people doesn't make you a racist. A black person, only a white person can be a racist, or a member of the person that controls all the wealth and resources can be a racist, that he can use it to shut down, enslave, Jim Crow, segregate, mistreat people. No black person in America has that kind of power to do anything to anybody. He cannot be a racist. Only thing a black person can be is a reactor to white racism.
That's right.
All you can do is react. So white folks says, I saw you on that morning show with Breakfast Club, and shoot, all of them are racist. They can't be racist. They don't have the power. They can't enslave white people. There's nothing you can do to white folks.
But Dr. Claud, we appreciate you.
I'm gonna leave y'all alone. Y'all are too tough for me up here.
No,
I appreciate
and
you,
you
Dr.
invited
Claud.
anytime to come back up here.
Y'all call me when you want me, and I'll come.
Yes, sir.
Only thing about it is, I said I have to apologize. I've been in the hospital 3 times this year, and I had some trouble just my balance is off. I'm weak in the legs. That's why I can't negotiate too well. But I came up because I hold you all as being special.
Well, we appreciate you so much.
And what I like to do, if y'all don't mind, and I apologize if it's something that you wouldn't want to do, I'm going to publicize across this nation that the Breakfast Club, they're going to push like hell to get these books into these schools and say,
sir.
We don't want just reading white books.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, can I do that? And it's okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We gonna keep all of this in. They gonna see it themselves. We gonna put this out.
I gotta spend more time talking about you guys.
Dr. Claud,
Dr.
thank
Claud,
you.
Yeah, no, thank y'all.
It's the Breakfast
and
Club
believe me,
Award.
I love you all.
We love you back.